Well, hello there, you scrublords, and welcome back to a video series that I almost never make anymore. Today, on Devlog Chats, we're going to be discussing the Sho't Kal Dalet, an upcoming Tier 5 premium located in the British tech tree. In case it wasn't obvious already, this is an Israeli modification of the Centurion, which features a more powerful engine, ERA, and improved ammunition types, and a few other things that we'll get into in the development history here. So the development of Sho't Kal goes back to 1956 when Israel, surrounded by enemies on all sides, being a recently created independent state, sought to upgrade their armored forces from the M50 and M51 Super Shermans and AMX-13s to much more modern battle tanks that were available on the market at the time. For this, they turned to the British to buy some 390 second-hand Centurion Mark IIIs and 5s. These Centurions began arriving in the mid-50s and would continue to be purchased by Israel well into the 1960s. Almost immediately, the Israelis began modifying these Centurions to better suit their specific requirements, namely the refitting of the Centurions with the updated and far more powerful L7 105mm gun wherever possible. These vehicles were designated Sho't, or Whip in English. The first major action involving Israeli Centurions took place during the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, in which Israel launched a preemptive attack on the forces of Egypt, Jordan, Sudan, and Syria. This conflict, better known as the Six-Day War, which saw Israel steamroll the Arab forces opposing them. As a side note, there were two British chieftains being tested by the Israelis near the southern border. The British, who had been playing kind of both sides of the proverbial fence, panicked and frantically requested that the chieftains be moved away from the potential combat zone, to keep them from being revealed of them playing both sides of the proverbial fence as mentioned earlier. The Israelis quickly got back to them a short while later saying, "Don't worry, we've moved the border." The Sho't, however, would gain its reputation from the 1973 Yom Kippur War, which saw a simultaneous surprise attack by Syria on the Golan Heights and Egypt across the Suez Canal into the Sinai Peninsula. Things didn't go well on the southern front for the Israeli Centurions. The Egyptians had brought with them a substantial number of anti-tank weapons, most notably the AT-3 Sagar anti-tank guided missiles, which were ground-based infantry portable versions of the NM-14 Malyutka missile. We see this already in-game on the BMP-1. These, in combination with widespread use of the RPG-2s and RPG-7s, wreaked havoc on the Israeli armored forces, who lost around 200 of their tanks in 2 days of fighting around an area known as the Bar-Lev Line. Things went far better in the north on the Golan Heights, however, where the Israelis were better able to make use of their superior training and marksmanship with the Shot's L7 105mm gun, which along with effective utilization of the terrain, allowed the Israelis to inflict staggering losses on the Syrians to the tune of somewhere around 500 tanks, while only losing about 60 to 80 tanks in return. However, despite these successes, it was clear much work needed to be done to further improve the Israeli armored forces. The first major upgrade for the Israelis came in 1974, when much of the tank force received a much-needed upgrade in the form of the 750 horsepower Continental engine and the Allison transmission power-packed with it. This power pack brought the Centurions and M48s in service much greater commonality and streamlined the logistics of maintaining several different types of tank in the field. In addition, the commander received a modified cupola capable of mounting either a 7.62mm GPMG or a 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun. The Centurions fitted with these upgrades became known as Sho't Kal Aleph, with Kal being an abbreviation of the Continental engine. The next wave of upgrades came in 1976 and 1978 with the Sho't Kal Bet, which featured thicker frontal hull and turret armor and the addition of the M111 Hetz AP FSDS round, which is better known in its license-produced guise as DM-23. Yes, the Leopard A1A1 uses a round that was co-developed by Israel. The irony is staggering, I know. The year 1982 saw the Sho't Kal receive its largest set of improvements yet, with the addition of a new, locally modernized fire control system, smoke grenade launchers on the turret face, and the Blazer ERA package, which finally provided much-needed solutions for dealing with infantry portable shaped charge anti-tank weapons. This version was recognized as the Sho't Kal Gimel. The final set of improvements, which seem to have appeared around 1985, included the addition of a thermal gun sleeve and a laser rangefinder, which is the vehicle we see in front of us today, the Sho't Kal Dalet, the final evolution of the Sho't Kal. As a final note on the development history, the model we will receive in War Thunder is also fitted with an A-frame type battering ram, and enough DACA to make an orc proud. So finally moving away from the development history a little bit, let's talk about the vehicle itself in-game. First of all, as I've already mentioned, this is going to be a Tier 5 premium, so it's going to be pretty darn expensive. I expect this to be of the same tier as, say, the Leopard... I almost said Leopard 2. The Leopard A1A1 with a 120mm gun, or the T55 AM1. So it's going to be a pretty expensive vehicle to pick up. However, what are you getting for it? Well, you're getting the best Centurion in the game. You're getting a Centurion that has an extra 100 horsepower over the standard Centurion, a better transmission, ERA, and a much better assortment of ammunition types than the previous Centurions could even dream of. So, not only do you get a superior ammunition type, but you also get access to stuff that you don't normally get access to on most of the British vehicles, like heat. In fact, it is the very first British vehicle that we have in the tech tree to be equipped with heat rounds, which is actually quite surprising if you think about it. The British, for whatever reason, never really went with high-explosive anti-tank. Even today, they still don't use it for some ungodly reason. They prefer to use HESH, which in the 60s and 70s and so on was probably justifiable, but nowadays, not so much. But regardless, how do I think the vehicle will perform? I think it depends heavily on its battle rating. If it ends up at 9.0, like the Leopard A1A1 did, it's going to really struggle, because the gun isn't any better than the Leopard A1A1's gun, functionally speaking. In fact, it's actually pretty close in performance to the XM1 as far as firepower is concerned. The problem is that it is significantly slower. It has a maximum top speed of about 48 kilometers per hour, and something tells me that you're probably never going to be able to reach that. The likelihood is you're going to have to throw this thing off a cliff in order to reach anywhere near that. However, if you've gotten this high up in the British tech tree, or you have experience playing other Centurions, you don't really play the British tanks for speed. You play them for their laser-accurate guns and defensive capabilities, which they tend to be pretty good at. So I think overall, the Sho't Kal will probably be a solid purchase. However, I encourage people not to pre-order. It's really easy to look at this thing and go, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. But the fact of the matter is, we do not know for sure how this vehicle will perform within the current meta. Will it be good? I think so. But we don't know that for sure yet. So I encourage people to at least hold off on pre-ordering until we see what it can do on the dev server. Once we see its capabilities on the dev server, we can get a much better idea of how it will potentially perform within the game's meta at 8.7, which is the tier I assume it's going to be placed at. 9.0 is going to be simply way too high for it. Being dragged into nothing but 10.0 games with the ammunition types and the lack of effective mobility. I mean, if the Leopard A1A1 can't really do it at 9.0, what makes the Sho't Kal able to perform that role? Yeah, overall, I think it will be a solid vehicle. However, we need to wait and see what it can do first before we rush off and throw our wallets at jiggles again. So I think that about covers my thoughts on the vehicle. I guess at this point it's just a matter of waiting for the dev server. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Devlog Chats. I know I don't make these too often, but unfortunately they take a lot more time than an average video takes to make. So, without further ado, this has been Many Miles Away. Keep your tracks checked, keep your binos in place, keep around on the tube, and I will see all of you guys in the next Unicorn review in a couple of weeks or so, and on the next stream. See ya!